I began to wish he was more sophisticated and earned more. I felt envious of friends with better off partners who were able to support them as they started their families. This is perfectly normal. This is perfectly normal for women. I stopped seeing Matthew as my equal, she said. I stopped seeing all the qualities that had made me fall in love with him. His fierce intelligence, our shared sense of humor, his determination not to follow the crowd. Instead, I saw someone who was holding me back. I encouraged him to find a career and was thrilled when he accepted to join the police in 1995. It should have heralded a new chapter in our lives, she says, but it only hastened the end. We went from spending every evening and weekend together to hardly seeing one another. Matthew was doing round-the-clock shifts while I worked long hours on the launch of the new magazine. Our sex life dwindled and nights out together were rare. I stopped appreciating little things he did, like leaving romantic notes on the pillow or scouring secondhand bookshops from novels he knew I'd love. He was my best friend, yet I took him totally for granted. After festering for weeks about his shortcomings, I told Matthew I was leaving. I spent hours talking and crying as he tried to convince me to stay, but I was adamant. My parents were horrified that I was walking away from a man they felt was right for me. My father's words to me that day continue to haunt me. Karen, her father told her, think carefully about what you're doing. There's a lot to be said for someone who truly loves you. Now, Matthew's first problem is that Karen saw, it's actually both their problems, is that Karen saw Matthew as her equal, which Karen thought was a good thing. But as we all know, it's not. No matter how many times feminism tells you that a woman can love a man they see as their equal, women are simply incapable of this. It is impossible, gentlemen, for a woman to truly love a man who is not superior to her. A woman cannot respect, nor can she love a man she is sexually involved with whose perceived value is equal or lower than hers. Can't be done, nor should it be. So Matthew is already behind the 8 ball, which points out another immutable truth, which is that the best relationships, the relationships where the man is superior to the woman, his value is higher than hers. These are the relationships where the man is at least 8 years older than a woman. Older men have themselves together. They make more money. They're further along in their careers. They're wiser. They're just more mature. They're more seasoned. An attractive 22-year-old girl, she might have some fun with a 24-year-old guy, but she's not taking that guy seriously as a long-term partner. No. She's thinking about locking down the 36-year-old she's sleeping with, the guy who drives the Audi, the guy who owns the townhouse, the guy who's been seasoned by all the traveling he's done. A 23-year-old guy who drives a used Honda Accord and lives with 2 roommates and works at the mall isn't going to move the needle in terms of satisfying a woman's hypergamy. Matthew was this guy, and unfortunately for him, he didn't realize that his relationship was over before it began, and if we're being honest, neither did Karen. But now we come to what always happens in these situations when a woman leaves a man at the altar, and that is infidelity. Okay, well, how do you know she cheated, Donovan? Easy. He was gone on nights and weekends. And young, pretty girls who buy into the feminist manifesto aren't going to sit around and wait for their boyfriends to come home on a Friday night. She's mistaking complacency for boredom, remember? Of course she cheated. She says she said herself her sex life dwindled, as if the only time they could have sex was at night. He says it best. He says every woman is a catcher on the right day. I agree with that 100%. Well, I'm going to add to that and say that it also applies if you can catch her in the right circumstance, as in her husband is rarely at home at night and works weekends. Now, another undeniable truth that I talk about constantly is that when a woman actually tells you she's leaving or that she's breaking up with you, she's already been sleeping with the guy she's leaving you for. A woman will break up with you in her mind months before she actually does it. I never hear of a woman dumping a guy and not having another branch in the form of a man to swing to. This is how they all operate, guys, and Miss Crosshair is no different. This is why she was adamant and resolute. Right? This is why she had that firm resolve. Women don't have self-resolve. They don't have self-motivation. They don't have strength. They're incapable of doing anything without some sort of support system. And that includes breaking up with their boyfriends and husbands. And what's the support system of choice for females the Western world over? That's right, another guy. That guy, that other branch, that's what gives her the strength, I'm putting in air quotes for those of you listening on the replay, to leave, despite the fact that her man is pleading with her to stay. Then, of course, her dad warned her about making this unwise decision, which, of course, she ignored. Here's something else I'll point out. So she encouraged him to find another career, join the police force in 1995, right? All right, get another career, you're going to make more money. Okay, he does that, but guess what? He's not home on nights and weekends. You see, ladies, what you don't understand, women want all the benefits without any of the consequences. And that includes what they want in their men. They want the man to make CEO level money and to be CEO without paying the CEO price. I've talked about this before. If you want to be rich and successful, you are going to have to make some sacrifices. You're going to have to sacrifice time. You're going to have to sacrifice your health. You're going to have to sacrifice your relationships. Women don't understand this. Rich men don't just have all the time in the world to just be doing whatever with them all the time. If your man makes good money, he's not going to have as much time to spend with you. This is how this is. I'll use myself as an example. Dude, I work my ass off. Right now, well, actually, up till about a month ago, I was working 12, 13, 15 hours a day. Barely had enough time to spend with Devin. That is the price that we pay. Now, fortunately, we live together, so we're able to sleep in the same bed and take dates. But the fact is that the harder you work, the less time you have. This is a trade-off. If you want to have more time, wives and girlfriends, if you're watching this, if you want more time with your boyfriends and husbands, guess what? You're going to have to sacrifice some of your bottom line. If you want him to make more money, you're going to have to sacrifice some of your time. You cannot have it both ways, at least not in the short term. Long term, when you're in your 50s and he's close to retirement and he's worth 7 figures, okay, now he's got a little bit of time. But guess what? Success and money and power doesn't come for free. He is going to have to sacrifice something. Women are grossly unaware of the fact that with every good thing that's worth accomplishing, there comes a price. Let's continue. Now she's talking about her father, giving her this advice. But I refuse to listen, she says, convinced there would be another, better Mr. Right waiting around the corner. I moved into a rented flat, this is an apartment, a few miles away in Hornchurch, Essex, and embraced the single life with a vengeance. Embrace the single life with a vengeance means that she was getting ran through. Embrace the single life with a vengeance is code for I started sleeping with men by the truckload, which is why she dumped Matthew in the first place. But now I was an editor, she continues, on a national magazine. Life was one long round of premieres and dinners or drinks or parties. Matthew and I remained close, she says, even telling each other about new relationships. But though I dumped him, I never felt the women he met were good enough. I can see now I was acting out of jealousy. I clearly wanted to keep him for myself. Our closeness was, however, called to a halt in 2000 when he met his first serious girlfriend after me, Sarah. One night shortly after his 34th birthday, I phoned to ask his advice about something. Matthew was unusually abrupt and asked me not to call him again. Quote, please don't send me birthday or Christmas cards anymore, he said. Sarah opened your card last week and was really upset. I have to put her feelings first. I hated the fact, she says, that Matthew was suddenly putting another woman before me. How dare she come between us? Over the next few weeks, I'm ashamed to say I vented my spleen at both of them in a series of heated phone calls. I was completely irrational. I didn't want Matthew back, she says, but felt upstaged by Sarah. Unbelievable. Unsurprisingly, she continues, after one particularly nasty argument, Matthew put down the phone and refused to take any more of my phone calls. I didn't realize it at the time, she says, but I would never speak to him again. Let's take it from the top here. Again, a life of premieres and dinner parties and drinks, that is a life that leads to a lot of sex with a lot of men. Then she says, I wanted to keep him for myself. This is how selfish women are, guys. They want to hop from bed to bed, but then they expect you not to. They want you to wait around for them while they get used up and passed around by random men. Just like that of a bachelorette, Hannah Brown. Dude, this chick wrapped her legs around every contestant at least a half a dozen times each, made sure that she made out with every dude on every episode, and had sex with at least 2 men during fantasy suite week, but then she expected these guys to remain chaste 6 months before they came to the show. If she found out that a contestant was involved with another girl before they came to the show, she lost her mind and was sent home. This is what happened to Jed and another guy named Scott. Then Miss Cross, this is funny. She actually goes from ex-girlfriend to stalker by calling his house to air out Matthew and his new girlfriend. Then she says she didn't want Matthew back, but she felt upstaged by Sarah. Of course you're upstaged by her. She's his girlfriend, and you're another woman who thinks it's your birthright to keep the attention of a man you left to ride the carousel. And again, it is absolutely unbelievable that even though she didn't want him back, she did her level best to destroy his relationship with another woman. This is how grimy females are, man. You think, okay, well, she's trying to destroy my relationship with my new girlfriend. She must want me back. Nah, man. She just wants to keep you on ice. Then Matthew finally realizes what's going on and says, you know, this chick broke my heart. She left me to start sleeping around. She's rubbing it in my face. And now she's got the gall to call me up and air me out. Be gone. And never talked to her again. Let's continue. Shortly afterwards, shortly afterwards, I met Richard. It was a whirlwind romance, she says, and within a year, we were engaged in buying an idyllic farmhouse in the Norfolk countryside while I continued my journalistic career commuting to London. He was a successful singer, and as we toured the country, I thought I had finally found the excitement and love that I craved. But Matthew was never far from my thoughts, she said, and Richard complained that I often brought him into conversations, even comparing them both. They were so different. Although outwardly romantic, Richard was repeatedly unfaithful, and I never felt secure enough to start a family with him. Eventually, after 3.5 years together, he walked out, having admitted his latest paramour was pregnant by him. My life fell apart, she says. Over the next year, I struggled to pull myself together and did a lot of soul searching. I finally understood what my father had meant. I realized Matthew was the only person who had loved and understood me. When I heard through a mutual friend that he had split up with Sarah, I wrote to him, apologizing and asking for forgiveness and a second chance. It was 6 years since we had last spoken, but I naively thought that he would want to hear from me. What I didn't know was that Sarah was still living at the house, and it was she who opened my very personal letter. It included my phone number, and she left me several angry, hurtful voicemails. Yet again, I had inadvertently caused problems in Matthew's life, so it was unsurprising I never heard from him again, despite writing several times over the next few months. In the end, I left it at birthday and Christmas cards, thinking he'd find a way to get in touch if he'd ever changed his mind. Ah, yes. Richard the bad boy, the successful singer, touring the country, excitement and adventure. And surprise, surprise, her rock star boyfriend was a cheater. And surprise, surprise, she stayed with him. Guys, if this doesn't show you that the worse you treat today's women, the better they treat you, and vice versa, nothing will. Dude, this woman had a man who was devoted to her. She had a man who wanted to marry her. She had a man who wanted to start a family with her. And what does she do to show her appreciation? She ups and leaves him. Then she gets with a man who repeatedly cheats on her. But how does she punish him? She stays with him for 3.5 years. He left her, not the other way around. He impregnated another woman, and he had to leave her. She didn't dump him when she found out that he had impregnated another woman. He left her. This is how messed up today's women are, guys. The better you treat them, the worse they treat you. It's ass backwards, but this is what feminism has created. It has created multi-generations of women who punish good treatment and reward bad treatment. Then after she gets used up and discarded by this bad boy alpha dude rock star, she actually holds out hope that Matthew will change his mind after walking out on him to sleep around. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Then she says, I heard a couple of years ago Matthew had married his new partner, Nicola. For a few moments, I couldn't breathe. Then the tears came. Matthew and Nicola still live in Essex and, as far as I know, don't have children. That's the next milestone I truly dread. It's been 11 years since Matthew and I last spoke, and I have to accept that door has been closed. After 11 years, she finally accepts that the door has been closed. Perhaps, she says, he has found what he is looking for, and I am a distant memory. I have had another significant relationship since Richard, with Rob, but that recently ended after 4 years. Rob reminded me a lot of Matthew. He was decent and honorable. The life and soul of the party, but with a kind and sensitive side. But we were too jaded by previous heartbreak to make it work. And while I wanted children, he had a grown-up son and didn't want to start over again. So once again, I am on my own, my mind full of if-onlys. If only I'd stayed with Matthew, we'd almost certainly be married with children. Or maybe Matthew wasn't the right man. I will never know the answer, but my decision to leave him has definitely cost me the chance of ever becoming a mother. Now I can only look back and admonish my selfish younger self. When I visit friends and family back in our hometown, I cannot help but hope I'll bump into Matthew. I'd like to think I'd say sorry, that I will always be there for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he turned his back on me and kept walking. To those out there thinking of walking away from humdrum relationships, I would say don't mistake contentment for unhappiness as I did. It could be a choice you'll regret for the rest of your life.